Hello Kindred Longevity Lifestyle Designers, this is Govin here with secretsoflongevity.com. Depression is something that has been a recurring topic in my life, not for myself in the slightest. I definitely went through a dark period in my teenagerhood where I was definitely depressed. And definitely that has been long since in my past, and it's not been an issue for me personally. But I've had a lot of people in my life, in and out of my life, who've had depression to varying degrees, as well as other types of mental illness that one could say overlap at times with depression. And while I often shy away from and stay away from making videos on specific health topics, there are times that I do make videos on specific health issues. Speaking of diseases, or in this case more of a syndrome or mental illness. So by making this, I'm not saying I'm going to just start doing these, because I definitely don't want to get into the habit of doing a video for every type of issue out there. I like to try and focus on the positive and how to build health. But in this case, there's just so many instances where I think there's a lot of people I know that could definitely benefit from this. And it's such a big overarching issue that it's worth covering. So growing up, I had friends around me that had varying degrees of depression, some of them, not all of them. I had a friend, my good childhood friend, one of my best friends, take his own life a few years after high school. I had a friend in high school attempt suicide. I had friends since then attempt, and some succeed. I had family that had mental illness ranging from depression to bipolar to extreme anxiety. So yeah, something that for those reasons I feel very strongly about. And just this past weekend I had something that was very strange happen. I was at an event. It was taking place at a bar / club kind of deal, and there was someone that a friend and I were talking to, just a random stranger. I think he worked there, but he wasn't working that night, he was just there. And we were connecting to this person to some degree, and at one point I was doing something else. I saw my friend interacting with him, and I saw them kind of like deep in conversation, and they looked a little like intense. They had this tense look on their face, and I went over, and not being 100%, what's the word, sensitive to the situation, I jokingly said to him, "Oh, has there been a death in your family?" Little did I know they were talking about the fact that he was feeling suicidal. And this was a brief interaction that we were having with this person. It wasn't until afterwards, when I was driving home with a friend, that I heard that was the issue, and I was shocked because I'd said that. Whether that was my intuition doing something, or that was just me being careless and happening on that topic, that might have implanted a seed in his mind, because it was kind of startling to hear if that was something that was on his mind. And my friend heard that he was hospitalized that next day, or heard from him that he was in the hospital. I don't know if he actually attempted suicide or if he just checked himself in, but regardless, that brings it up to my mind. And like I've been saying, there's been a lot of people close to me that have had varying issues with this whole issue, so that's the reason for this video. So that's my long drawn out introduction. We're going to get into the really practical stuff here. I want to cover lifestyle things, because I am definitely not pro drugs in any context, except for when they're absolutely necessary for critical issues. Drugs are not a solution, they're a crutch. No one should be on drugs long term for any type of illness, except for those that cannot recover from something because it's a severe genetic issue. And there's going to be a few things where that might be necessary. But virtually all the mental issues do not need medication in the long run. Yes, if someone's extremely suicidal, using antidepressants to get them out of that state quickly, to keep them from, offering themselves. Even in hospitals, people can kill themselves. They find the way to do that. That is where they are needed. That's crisis care. That's what drugs are meant for. There's genetic predispositions. There's not genetic absolute way things are. We can turn our genes on and off, and if you are constantly activating the genes of depression through your lifestyle, that's the state you're going to be stuck in. Whether it's through a big traumatic event in your life, or life circumstances that gets you on this path and then you just can't seem to get out of that rut, Or if it's a long-term nutritional deficiency that you just need to make the proper shifts, which might be counter to the mainstream ideas of diet and nutrition, and that might be the thing that pulls you out. We're going to talk about whole lifestyle things here, and if you bring them all together, there's really no reason why you can't beat this kind of issue. I'm not saying to work without the proper care of a physician. Obviously, things like this need really good care around you. I do not recommend just suddenly dropping any kind of medication you're on if you're listening to this. Highly recommend sticking with any doctor you're working with, psychiatric or medical, but you're choosing that doctor. They don't own you. You need to choose the one that's willing to actually help you get off the drugs, that's willing to help you reduce the amount you're taking over time while you incorporate these new lifestyle changes. And maybe even show them this video or show them some of the studies I'm going to link to in the drop-down menu below. So we're going to talk about three broad areas here. We're going to talk about diet, then we're going to talk about lifestyle, then we're going to talk about the extras, nutritional supplements and herbs that can be wonderful for elevating our overall mood. So this isn't just for anyone with depression. All of these things are actually very applicable for virtually all mental illnesses, which have very similar root causes in the mind. They just take different forms in different people. Anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia. I had somewhat verging on schizophrenic type issues of my own when I was much younger, and that's sort of that state I was in. It was borderline depression, borderline psychotic, and that was due to really rampant deficiencies. I overcame it on my own. I completely said goodbye to the medical paradigm. It's not everyone's path, but I basically told them to F off, and I chose an alternative route, even against my parents' wishes, and I'm very glad I did. I would not have wanted to get caught in that trap of the medication as the crutch, the lifelong crutch that they want to get you on for the pharmaceutical company's financial benefit. So, starting with that first topic, diet. This is going to come to a shock to some people, but overwhelmingly the biggest factor in mental issues when it comes to diet and overall health is lack of cholesterol. Virtually all the links I'm going to stick below are a reference to this. There's 26 scientific studies I have below that time and time again are just showing that low cholesterol is extremely correlated with depression, suicide, violent behavior. This goes beyond just depression and suicide. Murderers and violent criminals have very low cholesterol levels, and this just makes sense. Like, if you know how the body's built, every cell has cholesterol in its membrane. Our brain has a tremendous amount of cholesterol in it, and if your diet is low in cholesterol and you don't have that extra supply, yes, your body can make cholesterol from various other types of fats, but what people forget is that your body does that because it's such an essential thing. So if you just keep giving yourself the things that it needs to build such a strong, robust, healthy body, you don't have to rely so much on your body's own abilities to make it, because it's not necessarily able to make it in enough quantities that is good for long-term health, and especially mental health. I see a lot of vegetarians and vegans as friends growing up that had these issues. Don't tend to see it in omnivores anywhere near as much. That's not an absolute statement. I'm just talking from personal experience and my perception. That's not what these studies talk about. These are about total cholesterol levels not attached to diet, but we know that getting cholesterol from animal fats, most specifically, but also taking in saturated fat, which can come from things like coconut oil, helps build healthy cholesterol levels. Even the raw vegan doctors that treat mental illness know that they need to supplement these people with a lot of coconut oil to get those cholesterol levels up a little bit from this vegan, extremely low total cholesterol levels, so that their brains and neurotransmitters start being made and functioning at a better level. So your hormones, neurotransmitters, a lot of those have a base starting point of cholesterol. Like I said, your brain is mostly composed of that. So all these things come into play. We want to consume a lot more cholesterol. People can function on a lower plant-based diet in terms of the overall quantity of the volume of what they're eating, but some people can't. So if you're running into mental health issues and you haven't tried that approach of just consuming more animal products, whether you're omnivore or vegetarian or vegan, try adding them in as an experiment. This doesn't have to be set in stone. You don't have to make up your mind. This is a personal experiment. Adding in raw grass-fed butter, grass-fed at least, if you can't get it raw, still getting that in to get the cholesterol is wonderful. Raw dairy products of varying types, from raw cheeses, and again grass-fed, ideally non-hybridized. I've got a video here that really gives the complete picture around dairy if you're unfamiliar with that. Not everyone can function well on dairy. Some people can use some things but not others, depending on lactose sensitivity. That video is very complete. It's an older one on my channel, but I haven't had to make one since because I cover so much in it. Then you also have, of course, flesh foods, seafood, meat, organ meats, any kind of fatty meat. Again, pasture-raised, organic. Get away from the factory farm meats. We want to get all those dense, vital nutrients that are contained in the fat. Fat is extremely nutrient dense, has a lot of healthy cholesterol to build the brain's neurotransmitters and all those things. Then, of course, one of the most wonderful things is eggs. Getting really rich pasture-raised egg with the orangey yellow golden yolks. Tremendously good for building cholesterol levels in the body. And by the way, people think about heart disease, so that's going to be the first thing people go to in their minds. And if this is a big concern of yours, then definitely check out this video here. It's another long one, but it's very complete in debunking the entire cholesterol myth. It talks about saturated fat, cholesterol, even ketosis a little bit. And that is very much one that you need to watch if you're coming from the paradigm of thinking that cholesterol levels equals heart disease, if those are elevated. It's much more complex than that. There's HDL that we want to have high, which is a component of cholesterol. We want very low density lipoprotein low, which is more implicated in aortic plaque buildup and heart disease. Then there's also triglyceride levels. So it's not just about total cholesterol. That's the last thing you need to be looking at and be concerned about. The actual level that is redundant unless it's too low, actually. And then people also get stuck in that HDL and LDL levels. And LDL itself is not even bad. That just means cholesterol that's leaving the liver to the cells. There's actually only one type of cholesterol. There's no good and bad cholesterol. There's a range of densities of different types of proteins that carry cholesterol. So there's the HDL, which is carrying cholesterol from the cells and the entire body to the liver to be processed. And then there's LDL, which carries it from the liver outwards to various parts of the body. And there's also nutrients in there. It's not just cholesterol that's transported this way. All sorts of different types of fat-soluble nutrients are carried that way. So if you have infinitely low LDL cholesterol, that just means you're not getting cholesterol to the cells in the body. So that actually needs to be up there too. It's VLDL, which is these small particles that get trapped in nooks and crannies in the body and cause inflammation. They have oxidized cholesterol in them. So cholesterol is not the culprit. Get that through your mind, please. So once you're getting a lot more of these foods in, then you need to start looking at other issues with other macronutrient ratios from fats, carbohydrates, proteins, and kind of play around and see what works best for you. It's not going to be the same for everyone. Some people need a very high starch diet or high carbohydrate diet. Some people need higher protein, higher carbohydrate, lower fat. Some people, and it's usually those who have mental issues and depression, need a lot more fat. And the reason this is happening more and more in our society is because there's this constant attack against fat. That's unfortunately still going on since the 1950s due to Ancel Keys spurring that whole movement, and it's being facilitated and continued by a lot of these not so logical and reasonable type thinkers in the nutritional health movement. So you've got diet figured out. That's really going to be the cornerstone, the base thing that you need to get straightened out, because that alone can move mountains. Even if it is a trauma-based type of depression that spurred you in the first point in your life, the reason it's persisting is not because you need to keep going to therapy. Therapy helps and it's great, but if you don't get that aspect of you straightened out that is able to just repel and have those issues that you have beat off you like water, you need to have the neurotransmitters and brain health in place. Interestingly, Weston A. Price, it's not solid science by any means, but it's great anecdotal evidence that he went around looking at all these tribal cultures that, for the predominant part, had very high animal fat diets, had a lot of animal foods in them, and they were the happiest people he'd ever seen. The higher the animal fats in their diet, the happier they were. I've never been happier in my life. I consume lots of animal fats, and it's just simply the way to go. The second thing you need to get straightened out is lifestyle. So, how are you living your life? Are you exercising? Are you having the right ways of moving through emotional issues, whether it's with a therapist and like talk therapy or other types of more holistic or alternative types of therapy? Are you engaging in self-awareness type practices like meditation, yoga, qigong, tai chi? All these things help us learn about ourselves and be with ourselves and deal with the internal turmoils that we face. Those are overwhelmingly critical and crucial in overcoming these types of issues. Another factor, like I said, exercise, that's huge. People who exercise, it's known to boost all sorts of wonderful mood-elevating hormones and neurotransmitters in the body. Definitely do that. This definitely ties in with the nutritional side of things, but how are your vitamin D levels? Are you getting enough sunlight? Are you outside on a regular basis getting fresh air? Are you getting exposure to nature, essentially? It's unbelievable how it's such an obvious thing that the more people spend time inside, trapped up in front of screens, the more they're going to get depressed. You need to have the vitamin D in your body. You need to be interacting with people outside. Not the end of the world if you happen to have a job inside or do these things, but you need to make sure those vitamin D levels are in check. Because as we know, vitamin D is extremely implicated with mental health issues, let alone virtually every other issue out there. We want to have very good levels of that. So if you're not in a place where you can get optimal sunlight, or it's winter, or you work indoors all throughout the day, definitely supplement with it. That is an absolute must. The other issue is your ways of getting light during the day. So if you are indoors a lot, you definitely need to set up, whether it's winter or summer, a full spectrum light for your indoors. Much too complex to get into here, but essentially when you're getting full spectrum light, meaning UVs, rays, the blue pigments all the way down to the red, darker pigments, your brain chemistry is going to be tremendously better. You're going to be producing the proper amounts of serotonin and melatonin at night when you do turn that off and you have absolute darkness. So that's the other side of it, is you want to have complete darkness when you sleep. Get blackout curtains. Turn off all the lights in your bedroom, even the little blinking electronic lights. Get it as dark as possible at night and have your surroundings be bright during the day. And one other factor I'm going to mention for lifestyle is getting grounded, whether it's using grounding sheets or pads. I thought I have them right around me, but I don't. They're basically fabric that has silver woven through it, and it plugs into the ground in a socket, or sometimes you get them that they plug out a window into the earth if you don't have an older home that doesn't have that that grounding circuit in it. And that allows the electroconductive current of the earth to come up and be in contact with your body when you're not able to be in contact with the earth barefoot during the day. Get outside and be barefoot as much as possible, because that helps that envelope be in contact with you. It's also been found that people become more depressed, they have more diseases, all types of inflammation go up. The higher they are, or higher removed they are from the earth's crust. So meaning second-story apartment is better than being on a seventh-story apartment. Ground floor is the best. But even if you do live on a higher story apartment, you can simply just have a grounding pad and then also get regular barefoot exposure. This sloughs off all the electromagnetic frequencies you pick up from e-smog, meaning all that electronic pollution that we don't even sense, at least not in a very visceral way. You get that from computers, Wi-Fi, all these things, cell phones, cell phone towers. If you have a cell phone tower on the building, a lot of apartment buildings have them now. I definitely recommend flat out just move out of that building. You do not need to be in that close of proximity to those towers. They're extremely disrupting to your cellular communication abilities, let alone your overall mental health. It's an emerging field. There's a lot of financial pressures trying to suppress this information, because obviously the cell phone industry, just like the drug industry, is massive, and they do not want to have people's health getting in the way of their profits. Final thing is just figure out in your life what makes you happy. What do you want to be doing to enjoy yourself? Figure out what that is and start pursuing it. You have to start in small ways and then build that into a lifestyle. Do what you want in life. Do not get stuck into these states of just doing what is expected of you or following someone else's idea of what you should be doing. Some of the top supplements and superfoods and herbs I recommend using, and these can be very beneficial when just making this transition. They can be great for ongoing health sustainability as well. These are generally whole foods, so they can be taken continuously for long periods of time. These aren't crutches like medications are. I'm not recommending herbs that you have to cycle. These are tonic herbs that can be taken in large amounts daily for long periods of time without negative side effects. They have adaptogenic type properties. They have overall health building properties. And I may as well start with one that everyone loves, is chocolate. The closer to raw it is, the better. The darker the better generally. Raw chocolate has much more of the phenylethylamine, which is a unique molecule that is directly used by our body. Our body produces it, but getting a bit of it from food can be great. It's extremely antidepressant. It has actually been nicknamed the love molecule because it's the molecule our body secretes when we're in love and when we're feeling that closeness with someone and that feeling of kinship, whether it's friends and family. All these chemicals get released along with a whole cascade of other ones. And chocolate is one of only 2 foods that are commonly known that can be give access to that. But when chocolate's heated up, that is greatly diminished the amount of the PEA. But if you can only access dark chocolate, use that as well. There's a lot of other great mood building chemicals in that. As we know, it builds serotonin levels with the tryptophan. It has anandamide, which has a similar antidepressant effect that marijuana actually can have. It's also known as the bliss molecule. And of course there's some great minerals in there, a lot of magnesium, which is one of the largest mineral deficiencies in the world, talking about people worldwide. And the next greatest thing for a good source of PEA is E3 Live. It's actually the type of algae is called Aphanizomenon flos-aquae, and it is grown at least most abundantly in one particular lake in Klamath. It's called Klamath Lake in Oregon. And I'm just going to drink a bit here. I've got the last of a bottle. I've grown to think it's delicious. Some people would disagree if they're taking it for the first time because it's a freshwater algae. As a freshwater algae, it doesn't have as strong a flavor as spirulina or chlorella in my opinion. It's definitely better cold. This has been sitting out and this just warmed up as I wanted it to melt. But the easiest way to use this is it's about 30 servings if you're doing a tablespoon per day. If you are in a hard place, I'd recommend doubling or even quadrupling that dose. One of these a week, although you might think it's pricey, you're getting a good amount of nutrition, a ton of chlorophyll, very cleansing, has a whole wide range of health benefits. I'm going to link to a video here if you want to learn more about it. But again, the easiest way to use this is to melt the whole thing down. One bottle will fill 2 standard sized ice cube trays, and you just use 1 a day or 2 ice cubes a day, or if you're doing a higher dose, 3 or 4 a day. And I've been hard pressed to find someone that can actually not feel it when they take such a strong dose. And when I do demos of this at health food stores in the past, I'd take, a shot here or there throughout the demo. Not a ton of them, but 2, 3, 4 tops. And it's incredible how I would notice it after the fact, because I regularly take it at home, but usually just 1 tablespoon a day. And there's definitely an ongoing effect you get it from it, a buildup of energy, lightening of mood. But when you do a sudden good dose of it regularly, in a higher amount, it's remarkable the power it has to really shift that mood. It's that PEA and some of the other things in there that are wonderful and very uplifting. So in the drop-down menu below, there's also going to be links to a lot of these products if you want to purchase them directly through me. That helps me continue to put out this good content, which is helping you guys. So the next item that I'm going to talk about is any kind of fish oil, krill oil. In this case, this is fermented cod liver oil. The reason I use this personally is because it's very high in vitamin D. 1 teaspoon of this, I think it's about 3,000 international units of vitamin D. It's a tremendous amount. And I do take a vitamin D supplement on top of this because it's winter here and I take around 4, 5, 6,000 international units a day of vitamin D, which is what you should be taking. And I definitely back off if you're getting a lot of sunlight. It's not necessary to take that much. But if you consider the average person in the tropics is getting around 20,000 international units a day of vitamin D just from the sun alone, 6,000, which is more than the RDA, and actually a lot of doctors will tell you, oh, you're going to overdose on it. That's not going to happen. People overdose when they take like 30, 1,000 international units per day for a long period of time, or maybe in smaller amounts, but still getting up there, 8, 9, 10 IUs a day for a long period of time. But so many people are so deficient in vitamin D that it's a definite must to do a higher dose for a period of time. If you intuitively feel you need to back off, maybe do that, but the best thing to do is get your overall 25 hydroxy vitamin D checked on an intermittent basis so you can kind of gauge where you're at with that level in your body. And also if you're taking vitamin A or eating foods rich in vitamin A, that's going to balance it out. And it's said that vitamin A excess or problems with too much vitamin A or problems with too much vitamin D is caused by not enough of one or the other. So you need to have a good ratio between the two. I'm not sure of the exact ratio. I think it's 2 or 3 times vitamin A to vitamin D. I could be wrong. Maybe just double check that. But I'm not saying you need to track it that carefully. That's just to have a rough idea that you want to be getting a large amount of both of those. And cod liver oil is often taken with butter oil, high vitamin butter oil, because that has that higher vitamin A content, which is a good combo with that, so you get both at once. And that, again, is going to Weston A. Price's recommendations and looking at a lot of those cultures that were the happiest, the most joyful. They had a large amount of these foods rich in fat-soluble vitamins, specifically A, D, but also K2 and the various types of tocopherols or vitamin E's. Something I've been very enthusiastic about lately has been coffee. You can check out this video here recently that I've done on it if you want to learn more about the wide range of health benefits from it. One of the top ones that I've been reading about has been its absolute tremendous ability to fight depression. People are drastically less likely to commit suicide when they consume regular amounts of coffee. Of course, I'm talking about and recommending fair trade, organic coffee, high quality, fresh roasted, fresh ground, and made in your own home essentially. The ways you consume it and what you do with it is all a matter of preference. I like to make espresso and then either add water to it or add dairy to it of some kind and get that fat in there, which helps, for me, offset that slight agitation type side to the caffeine. But it's definitely the caffeine that has that wonderful antidepressant effect. Finally, I'll give you one herb you can use, one tonic herb, top of the line for any issues with mental health, reishi. Reishi is one of the supreme Shen tonics. Shen means sort of the highest of the 3 treasures, the one we're trying to attain. It's our spiritual radiance, one could say our aura. There's Jing, Qi, and Shen. Jing is like your primal essence, your drive, your sexual power. Qi is your overall daily energy. You get that from food, the air we breathe, a whole variety of other things, and that's more around digestion. If you were to talk about where it's situated in the body, it's sort of core area is down here. And then Shen is, the spiritual energy, the spiritual awareness, and we could tie that into mental health, because when that becomes severely depressed, you're obviously going to run into mental health problems. So we want to have that expanded and radiant. And reishi is quite profound in how it can almost elicit a spiritual detoxification in the body. It's not something that can be put on to any one thing in terms of what's happening biochemically. It's really kind of out there when you start talking about the spirit of the plant and these types of things, but it really has to be experienced. When you do higher dosage of good quality reishi, wild reishi even more so is better in that sense, but even a good quality drawn wood reishi, such as the one that is sold at Hyperion Herbs at the links below. You can also use the reishi spore oil, which is the extremely concentrated essence of the spores of the reishi. It's these microscopic cells that get cracked open, and there's the oil that's extracted, and that is very potent and extremely Shen building. So try that out if that's something that you feel drawn to do. So that sums up my basic recommendations for depression, and this could also apply to extreme anxiety, bipolar issues, schizophrenia to some degree, even more manic type personality disorders. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying this is a way of directly treating this. I'm just offering lifestyle choices that I've seen work in people, and you could try that out yourself all the same. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, favorite, and share this video if you feel so inclined. And with that, I'll talk to you next time. Take care and embrace life without limits. If you're feeling suicidal to any degree, you need to talk to someone about it. Whether it's a family or a friend. Most importantly, a professional that can get you the help you need and recognize symptoms in you and be able to tell how serious things are. We need you here. It's not your time to leave. There's always a way out. You might not feel like there is right now, but if you're in that space, and I can relate. I've been to some degree down that path, not as far as some people have, but there's a much better place that's possible while you're still living here. And it might take time, but I hope this video might have inspired you that there is some hope, and just hang on. It gets better.